How's it going, everybody? StevieWunderKid here, and today we're going to be doing a drift test and tune on the brand new Declasse Drift Yosemite. So the Drift Yosemite was just added this past Thursday as part of the Diamond Casino Heist DLC, and you can purchase this car for $1.3 million off of Southern San Andreas Super Autos. Going all in with the drift upgrades, you're looking at a total cost of around $1.5 million. So as with the other cars in this update, they are pretty expensive. The inflation is real, but it will be worth it. I'll go over that in a little bit. But as I said, around $1.5 million or so with all of the necessary drift upgrades. So this car is pretty heavily inspired by the Chevy C10 because it uses the original Declasse Yosemite model. However, I think it is pretty obvious that the main inspiration for this car is Ken Block's Ford F-150 Huna truck. Kind of the fender flares are a dead giveaway for this. It is very similar to his truck. There's also a lot of modifications you can apply to make it almost a carbon copy of the Ken Block Huna truck. Now, going into the drift setup, it is very simple because of the fact that, again, this car cannot be manually lowered. As with the majority of the other rear-wheel drive cars in the Casino Heist update, they cannot be lowered with a weapon. So really what that means is that the main emphasis for this build is going to be on power upgrades. So focus on upgrading the engine and the transmission as well as the turbo, whatever you have the money for, whatever you've got unlocked, make sure that you maximize the car's power output. As with other cars in this update as well, we're going to stay away from any spoiler upgrades. I know that you might not necessarily be applying a spoiler upgrade. I know there's the mod where you can remove the tailgate, but even doing that will increase the traction. So just stay away from any spoiler upgrades. Even though it might not be a spoiler, still just stay away from it because it is going to add some traction and it might make it a little bit hard to drift in the long run. In addition to that, because the car again cannot be manually lowered, you can pretty much apply any suspension or any set of wheels that you want. There's pretty much no difference here, so you can go with a certain type of mod depending on your taste and whatever look you're going for. So as you guys will see in the background, I went for a more aggressive drift missile type build with the red and black color scheme in addition to the blacked out wheels, and I also did a bumper delete on the front and rear. In the front, I deleted the bumper and also did an aggressive front lip, and I also did a couple different bits here and there. I did the roll cage in the back with the exposed fuel cell, and in addition to that, I did the sun strip on the front windshield. So while the modifications are pretty similar to the original Yosemite, you still can build it up pretty much the way that you want to, which is nice. So moving into the drift review, the first thing I'm going to say is that this car is a great drift car. The fact that Rockstar actually put the effort in to give us a car that's actually worth drifting is awesome. I know a lot of people took issue with the original Drift Tampa and the fact that it was all-wheel drive and did not have drifty handling at all. However, the fact that Rockstar added a car that has drift in the name that actually does drift is kind of cool, and it definitely is something that I'm sure the community is happy about. So going into how the car feels when drifting, to me personally, it feels like it's a mix of the Nebula Turbo and the original Yosemite. So what I mean by that is that the Drift Yosemite is very slidey at low speeds. Doing any sort of slow speed drift, whether that's going around a simple corner, drifting around a single point, anything that's sort of a small low speed drift is very easy to accomplish in this car. It is pretty simple as well. You just need to make sure you keep the power on and tap the handbrake as you would usually when you're drifting cars at lower speeds. Now at higher speeds, the car does have a little bit of a tendency to straighten out, and overall it does feel very planted and a little bit more snappy like the original Yosemite. As we all know, the original Yosemite was a very good car to take on the track. It was very good at cornering, and you can still see a little bit of that in the Drift Yosemite as well. It is a little bit more floaty, a little bit less planted than the original, but you can still see quite a bit of original Yosemite inspiration in this car's handling attributes. So as I talked about before, lower speed drifts are very easy to do as long as you keep the power on. Now high speed drifts are where this car falters just a little bit because it requires you to be a bit more aggressive. The timing of the mid-drive speed boost is actually really key to making sure that you can carry the Drift Yosemite through longer corners. So long as you hit it right in the RPM range, you should be good to go. So I think a lot of people really take issue with the fact that this car cannot drift in higher speeds. I've watched quite a few videos on this car and people say that it's not very good at drifting at high speeds, and I think the real issue here is timing, because you need to make sure you time the mid-drive speed boost right to get the full benefit from it. At some points you'll hit the mid-drive speed boost too high in the RPM range where you will get a little bit of a speed boost, but you won't really be breaking those tires loose. Other times you'll hit it too low in the RPM range and you'll just end up tapping the handbrake unnecessarily and slowing the car down, killing your speed and killing whatever drift that you had. In order to kind of master the mid-drive speed boost, I recommend just doing it in a straight line and seeing the spot in the RPM range where you're going to get the most traction loss. You will notice it is very noticeable, and hopefully with enough practice you'll be able to carry that over to a drifting context. You are going to need to be a little bit more aggressive, especially when you're trying to get those longer speed drifts. You're going to have to make sure you time the mid-drive speed boost right, and you are going to need to combine that with a pretty aggressive weight transfer, which means essentially shifting shifting the car's weight all the way from the left to the right or from the right to the left in order to make sure you can carry the car through those corners. If you time both of those things correctly, you should have pretty much no issue doing manjis down long straights or carrying the car through really, really long corners. But again, the basis is timing, so really focus on getting the timing down and you should be good to go. So overall, I'm gonna give this car a driftability score of 9 out of 10. As I said before, drifting at low speeds is extremely easy to do, and it does take a little bit more work to drift at higher speeds, but again, it is possible. I feel like the Drift Yosemite is going to be a really big hit, especially among those who are just getting into drifting in this game. You really do have a lot of steering angle as well as power output to play with as well. Very applicable to, again, lower speed as well as high speed drifts as long as you learn the techniques properly. So I definitely feel like this car is good for beginners. It gives you a pretty good idea of the basic drifting mechanics, just doing low speed drifts and single point drifts, getting familiar with steering angle, how to counter steer and all that stuff. And it also does allow a little bit of room for improvement, especially when you're trying to learn the timing in the mid-drive speed boost and combining that with a weight transfer to get this car through those higher speed corners. So overall, I definitely think the Drift Yosemite deserves a spot in your garage. I, for one, am going to keep this for as long as I can. It really is probably one of the better drift cars in the game. It's got wide applicability. It's really cool in that you can style it after the Huna truck as well. And overall, I think this is a really good addition to the game. And if you have the money and if you have the time to sit down and try to drift this thing, you are going to have a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this drift review, and I'm sorry for any delays. I try to get these videos out as quickly as possible, but of course paying mind to the quality of the videos overall. So if you guys enjoyed, please remember to leave a like on the video and subscribe to show your support to the channel. Leave any questions.